All right, this is the Flood and Erosion Control Board meeting. It is November 17th, 7 p.m., and I'd like to have everyone go around and announce who's here. This is Becky Bunnell, I guess current chair.
Okay. Don Lamberti.
Dick Mahusky.
Paul Landino.
Peter Wiswell.
Prue O'Brien.
Okay, and we are going to start the agenda with item 1 on call, which is the approval of the October 20th draft minutes. Does anyone have any comments on the minutes that were sent around by Prue?
Yes, I have a comment.
I had one minor comment.
Don.
Yeah. It says item 3 on call. Near the bottom there, it says the FECB is developing a 20-year plan with finance. To me, is the plan with the Board of Finance, with the finance director or something? I just thought it wasn't clear, but it's kind of minor.
Yeah, so I think the intent of that was that Tom Flynn had asked me to work with finance to develop a 20-year plan. So why don't we say with the finance department? That would be okay.
Yeah. It wasn't clear to me. It's minor though. Look good.
Hey, Becky, really a 20-year plan? Because that's longer than the capital. The capital workshops are 10-year look-aheads. I
think he was asking for that because bonding is usually 20 years, so it's a comparable apples-to-apples look. Anyway, I did actually get that to him. But anyway, let's continue with the minutes.
Okay.
Other comments on the minutes?
Yeah, I have a comment. This is Dick. I have a comment on item number 2, where it's talking about the wastewater treatment plant.
Mm-hmm.
Third line up from the bottom on that page, it says contamination and remediation, shallow excavation along the line of the sheet piles. I would suggest that it reads better if it says contamination and remediation, insert, by means of a. So it reads by means of a shallow excavation along the line of sheet piles.
Okay.
Then the next sentence expands on that and explains they are removing contaminated dirt and putting back clean dirt. And then I would also suggest, because as I'm reading the next sentence, they are driving in additional sheet piles to lengthen the wall. I'm not exactly sure what that means in my own mind, and I've been going to most of these meetings, so I would suggest that we just strike that sentence.
Well, I guess I wrote it down because I thought that somebody had said that.
I may have said that. I can't put it in context as I know it now. I mean, there was a little bitty jog in the wall from what was on the original drawings, but that's a de minimis change.
Okay.
So do you want me to take away the whole sentence?
Yes. Delete the sentence, they are driving in additional sheet piles to lengthen the wall.
Okay. Done.
And then up in the line there, it should read contamination and remediation by means of a shallow excavation along the line of the sheet piles.
Okay.
And then on the very top of the second page, Station 1 pump rainwater into the sound period. The water has an oily sheen and will be tested for PCB. I think that needs a little bit of explanation. I would change the water has an oily sheen. I would change that to read the groundwater at that excavation. As we're talking about pump station number 1. And it's the groundwater at that excavation has the oily sheen.
Okay.
That's all I have.
Okay. For last
has an oily sheen and will be tested for PCB then, right?
The groundwater at that excavation has an oily sheen.
Right, okay.
The groundwater at that excavation has an oily sheen. and will be tested for PCB.
Okay.
Okay.
Any other comments on the minutes?
I'm fine.
Nothing here.
Is there a motion to approve them? Yeah.
I make a motion that we approve the minutes as amended.
Okay.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor? Say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anyone
Okay.
opposed? Okay, that's passed. So item 2 on call is a review of the Flood and Erosion Control Board Master Plan. I can give a quick update on a couple things, and then if anyone else has any other updates, please jump in. So the town has applied for 3 FEMA BRIC grants, BRIC grants, and these, I believe they were due at the end of. Good question. You know what? I don't know. I did know at one point. It's an acronym, obviously.
I never heard that one.
I'm guessing the R is resilience, but I don't.
Okay. I never heard of that one before. Okay.
I'm not 100% sure. I can look it up, but we applied for one for the the Riverside Culvert and Tide Gate project. We applied for another one for the Rooster River detention basins, and we applied for one for the pump station. So we have no idea if we'll get any of those grants, but we figured let's go ahead and put in for them, and so that those applications are going out. I believe they're due by the end of January.
Becky, when you say pump station, that's the Jennings Beach pump station?
That's the $15 million pump station, yes.
Right, okay.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
I did look it up if you want to know what it says, what it means.
Oh,
Okay.
yeah.
Building resilient infrastructure and communities.
Sounds good. Okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah.
All right, so that is one update. The other update I have is for the Fairfield Beach Road survey project. The surveyors were pulled off a little bit because there were some conflicting things, and they had to go do those, but they are back on the job, but now instead of having results now timing, which is what we sort of expected the survey results to be now and then sort of work up a plan, now we're talking about sort of midwinter to have results and then a plan in sort of early spring. So it just shifts that project out a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
I also talked briefly about the Pine Creek dredging project that I think many of you are aware of, that Antonio is leading with the consultant Alexandra.
Mm-hmm.
And we talked about how much, how the town had paid for it last time. And my understanding is in 2013, it was a roughly $500,000 cost, and FEMA had paid the bulk of that cost. And
wasn't that Sandy money?
Yeah, exactly. That was from Sandy. It was some sort of probably part of the hazard mitigation grant, I'm guessing. But anyway, so there is a feeling that right now the town doesn't support paying for any part of Pine Creek dredging because it's not a navigable waterway, and it's not part of the town plan at this point. So I don't know that has been 100% decided because I'm not sure, how the negotiations have gone. I've not been involved myself in that, but I suspect that if residents want that, it's going to have to be paid for by residents.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
Becky, do you know, because when we at that last meeting when Brian was there, certainly paraphrasing what was said, but it was put forward that the town might consider being the lead applicant for any grants and also provide funding for the project by bonds, which would be paid for over the 20 years by assessment of the residents that benefited from it. And Brian Carey offered that he would be willing to put together a bid request to engineering firms to do additional surveying of the creek, which he felt would be necessary to get permits. But Alexandra felt from her conversations with this guy at Deep that, oh no, the old stuff is okay. I don't know. I would tend to go with Brian's opinion about how Deep looks at these things.
Good luck on that one.
So, and I think, didn't Antonio say he was going to go and bend the ear of the first select woman about sponsoring the effort, not necessarily paying for it, but sponsoring it?
Yeah, I was not there in the Brian Carey meeting, so I can't comment on that. But
Don, were you
I think
there?
it would
Don?
be
yes,
great
I
if
was
the
there.
town.
I think Brian said
Do you
the
recall
town has
what
to sponsor it. I think the town has to sponsor it because it's the town creek.
Yeah, I think that's my sense also.
Yeah. Yes.
Okay,
but
good.
it's out there. That project is out there doing something.
Okay.
I don't know what.
And was there any discussion, just out of curiosity, on either raising bulkheads so that we don't get sand overflow and just have the creek fill in again, or any kind of extension of the riprap, or
no, there was talk about
Island.
There was talk about it's dredging the creek is a repetitive operation because the wind, tides, and waves will only bring it back in, and there was no. I don't recall any substantive approach being identified. Don, do you have a comment on that?
Well, someone talked about extending the jetty out to Sunken Island, but that's not going to happen. But they were talking about that.
But I know some people in the prior meeting were saying they love the idea of dredging, but they don't really support it if it's not going to have any kind of ongoing support to keep it from filling in again, because then it's just going to have to be dredged every several years, and that gets very expensive for all the the people who live along the creek. So I thought there was a pushback from a few people, I don't know how many, that said we don't support just dredging alone unless there is some longer-term plan to protect the fill-in from coming right back again at the next big storm. So did that come up at all in the Brian Carey meeting?
People mentioned that, but no one really.
Yeah,
knows what
and much the same vein as the initial meeting on that topic down there at the turnaround. People realize that dredging alone, as I said, it's a repetitive operation. Depending on which storms come, it could be required every 5 years. It could be required every 12 years. It's a crapshoot. You can't plan on dredging every 5 years and having navigable depth of water being maintained.
I can't help but think that if you go east of the fire station there, the wastewater treatment plant, there's a marsh that can be restored in there. Also, there's a culvert that goes under Reef Road, and east of there, seems to me, if there's any money's going to come, you have to propose restoring a marsh as part of the plan. And if we restore the marsh, then will Deep let us do something? That would be my. Seems to me there has to be some kind of a grand deal there.
Well, I think there's a tide gate there, though. So dredging up to the tide gate wouldn't do anything towards restoring that marsh.
Right, but you have to agree to open the tide gate and let flood waters in and whatever. But seems to me
that's how the tide gate should be operated now, to keep that marsh healthy.
Yeah, agree to open it, and in return, let us build whatever,
No, the argument, and that was one of my pre-existing thoughts, and Brian's comment at the meeting changed my mind. My thought was that if the creek fills in, then we're not going to be able to have the volume of water to keep the upstream marshes healthy. And Brian said, no, because we have a 6-foot tide, so the tidal change is enough to put head on the water, and you might not be able to get a boat by there, but there's enough water exchange to keep the marshes healthy for the foreseeable future.
Right.
Dick,
right, so
how far up the creek is it being suggested that it be dredged?
I have no answer to that.
I have not seen a plan either. Although I don't think it'll even make it around the bend to get out of the 2000s.
Right. Barely around the bend.
The other thing that comes into play there is that toward the mouth of the creek, that's filling in with a lot of shells and a lot of sand. As you go upstream, there is a larger component of muck and mire. And it's the muck and the mire that is perhaps undesirable to be put on a beach somewhere, to be taken out in the sound and dumped in deep water. So that, when you do the sampling, the borings, when you do the borings and sample that and analyze the samples, one would expect that as you go further upstream, the dredged material is getting crummier and crummier and crummier.
Do we know what the depth is as you get further up the creek?
I don't know that.
I don't know.
Apparently there was some cross sections done in 2012 right before the 2013 dredging. The copy of that engineering report I got did not have those cross sections, and I wrote myself a note. I have to ask Bill Hurley whether he has those or not. So they may be available, but I do not. I have never seen them.
Okay.
I can tell you, I kayak back there a lot, and I can take a kayak at very low tide. I can virtually always get a way to kayak all the way up to the wastewater treatment plant. But there are major sections where I'm just barely making it through these small little channels, and most of the
with your 4 inches of draft, right?
Yeah, and then most of the creek is actually dry, or not dry, but out of water.
Yeah.
So I'm in these little water channels to get up there. So
Becky,
there are little channels.
Mostly the marsh is dry, but the waterways per se, those.
No, I'm talking about there are large sections, particularly down closer to the mouth, where you have channels of water that you can go into, but there are major sections where there is less than 3 to 4 inches of draft.
Yeah, but further up, I guess the point of my question to Dick was, my impression when I go up in my kayak is that the water maintains a pretty constant depth, subject to the tide, of course, as you get up further all the way to the gates. Like that's changing.
Surprisingly, it is actually more water, better depth as you get up closer to the water treatment plant.
Exactly, yeah. Dick, if I may, one other question, showing my ignorance as usual. What are the suggested measures that might be taken to prevent the mouth of the creek from backfilling in frequently?
Just improving the existing jetty at the bitter end of Fairfield Beach Road on the quote Durrell property unquote. making that higher, making it go out further, connecting it all the way out to Sunken Island, building up Sunken Island to also serve as a breakwall. And then the other part of that is, do you also build a breakwater on the western side of the creek mouth? Do you relocate the creek mouth somehow during this dredging operation?
Wow.
And frankly, none of that can be done unless we model it. I mean, right now we would need a firm to do a whole, hydraulic analysis, wind wave pattern, sedimentation, drift. There'd have to be a fairly major study to really even understand how things would impact. And I don't think that's planned at this. I have not heard anyone talk about funding a study such as that at this point.
If just as a small digression, if the jetty breakwater were to go out to Sunken Island, with the literal drift, would the sand accumulate on the east side of it such that we'd have new...
Presumably, yes.
Is there that much sand moving down still such that we'd have a great big new section of land?
Yes, there is. Isn't that the sand, the area that Steinke said people would never buy into it because the land that accretes would belong to the state, not to the homeowners. And the homeowners would no longer be waterfront; they'd be water view.
Why would it belong to the state? Just out of curiosity.
Because the state would pay for the jetty. And so the sand...
Well, I don't think the state is definitely not going to pay for a jetty. We'd be lucky to get it through deep.
Well, I don't know.
But I don't think they'll pay for it.
Steinke always said that would be a big problem.
I think that was before the hard structure deep
could be,
current environment is my hypothesis, but I could be wrong.
I think that I'm certainly not an expert in this area of the law, but I think you have to look at riparian rights and what the law says in Connecticut about accretion to land. And I'm not sure it would have anything to do with who built the breakwater. I could be wrong, but
right.
I know the oyster fishermen historically have always argued over this issue, and it could be ascertained, but I think there's law on this that goes beyond who builds the jetty.
In any case, that sort of a jetty is one of the things that is in our plan. Unfortunately, the study for that was not put into the capital plan by Brian Carey in this year. So I think we need to go back with him and see whether he's open to putting it in for a following year. So it did not get into the capital plan.
Okay.
That's pretty much all I had in terms of updates to the plan.
Can I go back to the grant applications, the Building Resilience Infrastructure in Communities grant program? Is that federal money administered by the Department of Housing? Is it an HMGP grant?
It's a FEMA. It's a FEMA grant.
FEMA. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Did Laura put those applications together, Becky?
I think Brian put the Riverside Culvert and Tygate one, and I think Laura might have done the other two, the pump station and the Rooster River.
Okay. All right. So I will comment briefly on the Riverside tide gates, the replacement of the bridge and the tide gates. Brian had told me, maybe it was at the meeting. No, I know it was at one of the wastewater treatment plant meetings because John Richer was there from Ty and Bond who did the plans on that. So the construction plans and specifications are all completed for that job. Brian told me, and this is like 2 weeks ago, he said it's ready to go out for bid, like momentarily. And I've been looking at the bid site on the town purchasing site, and it's not there yet, but it's supposed to be going out for bid soon. And if the wastewater treatment plant project is any indicator, we might see something happen there in 3-4 years. But it should be easier. It should be easier because that location was never used as a landfill. So the contaminants and the chemistry and the PCBs and everything should not be a significant factor there at all.
Okay. And then there is a Rooster River, I believe it's this Thursday, right? 2 days from now?
It is Thursday, yes. There's the online Rooster River update. And I'm not personally sure of the format, whether it's just going to be look and listen, or whether I think it's only going to be look and listen, and then they're going to ask all the listeners, the lookers and listeners, to answer a series of questions that are available now. If you want to look at them, they're going to ask them to answer that series of questions like on their own, and then just send that in within a week so that they'll get feedback from all the interested residents on those topics. But you can go now. The link to that is in the announcement that Brenda put out, and if you go to that link, you can see the presentation. Basically, I think it will be more fleshed out with some commentary during the presentation. So, but I don't think there's going to be much back and forth during the presentation. They want to present the information to the people, explain why they're asking the questions, I guess, and then just ask people to please fill out the questions. And some of them are yes, no. Some of them are give us your comments in writing. So, yes, that is Thursday. I believe it's 7:00. I'd have to look, but that should be. I don't think there's going to be anything new to us because we're obviously going down that same path of 5 to 7 retention, 5 to 8 retention areas initially, and then they've narrowed that down to 4 or 5 leaders in the pack, and those are the ones they're going to be presenting.
All right. Anything else on the master plan update? Otherwise, I'm going to move us to item 3.
The other thing I need to fall on my sword again, because I was going to put together a 2020 addendum to kind of take the capital budget that Becky put together with Brian and kind of flesh that out and overlay that on what were they, 10 items that we had back in the 2015 master plan. So I will try and get that done and circulate it out to all you guys for the next meeting.
Sounds good.
Okay, so let's move on to item 3 on call, which is an update on discussions for a town resiliency fund. So I think just to recap, so I had put a proposal together. I had sent it out to you guys for the last meeting. I'd been working with Tom Flynn, one of the selectmen, to help fine-tune the proposal and get his guidance. And he understood the proposal, but he'd asked me to put together a 20-year financial plan that would outline what sorts of income we would expect to get versus outlays versus inputs into it. So how much I'd originally started a proposal with let's do a $5 million initial input and then an annual input of like $250,000, and he sort of pushed back that $5 million was perhaps too high. So when I did the 20-year plan, I put $750 in. Just to give context, Branford, which is the other town that has done this, and I've actually been working very closely with Jim Finch, who is the head of finance in the town of Branford, who actually put together the plan just to get his guidance in terms of what they did and what they didn't do. They started with $1 million, and they've been adding $250 with a 2% increase each year on top of that for an annual input into that fund. So that's why I thought we were a much bigger town than Brantford, so I immediately bumped it to $5 billion and
right as well.
a little bit of pushback. So I'm back down to $750. I did also explore the idea of whether we could actually bond the projects we know we want to do instead now and put the bond money into this fund where it's going to be earning a 5 to 6% interest rate, and then use and accrue interest over the couple years until we need to release that money for the project itself. And I did get some guidance from Jim Finch that you have to be very cautious about using bonding money in that way. There are tax implications and stuff, but there might be a way to do that. He says a lot of finance people won't have the guts to try to do that, but he thought there might be a way if the town was willing to do it. But I suspect.
Well, I don't think we have a lot of appetite for risk lately in this town.
No,
so
I agree.
I suspect we'll be more conservative. So
yeah, I would.
It really then has to come from cash on hand reserves, and then the annual amount has to be agreed, and then we have to. Again, that would be cash on hand reserves as opposed to, we have to decide. Do we try to find some way to fund this through an assessment of some sort, stormwater assessment. There's other ways to fund these kinds of things. So I'm not really in a position to understand many of these other potential, like the stormwater approach, but I do think that might be an interesting way. But I think that's used then to fund stormwater and drainage systems, not necessarily our resilience plan. So anyway, so what we have is a fund proposal. We have a 20-year plan. I have sent those to Tom Flynn. Tom Flynn had also asked me to reach out to Tom Bremer, I guess, who is the chief Bremer administrative officer, who has not gotten back to me. I've left a voicemail. I've sent emails, and so I will keep trying. I'm not quite sure why he's not responding. At least to say that he's received it and just can't talk because he's too busy right now, but he has not even responded, which I find a little surprising. But anyway, I will keep trying. So that's where the Resilience Fund sits right now. And the only other thing is the administration of a fund such as this. There is a cost to administer it. And right now has been some suggestions. I don't know if you guys are aware. There's a whole deep working group that is looking at resilience funding.
Really?
Yeah, it's actually interesting. I can send you there was a September working group report out, I guess, that was interesting. It's about an 80-page report, but it's very interesting to read. Actually,
who made the report?
Is that based on what Brantford's doing in large part?
No, it's a deep working group. Resiliency. It's called Finance and Funding Resilience Working Group. It's the Governor's Council on Climate Change. So it's a Connecticut working group, and it has some interesting people in it. It has insurance people, it has finance people, it has
is this the thing
people.
that they had that webinar on like 2 weeks ago? Katie Dykes was on this webinar because the webinar was talking about sources of funding for mitigation projects.
That's the webinar.
And I listened to that, and I didn't really come away with a whole lot of, gee, that's interesting from that one.
That was the Resilient Cities webinar?
I don't know.
I think it was. They actually talked about the stormwater utilities funding, the Green Bank and PACE funding, the bond rating.
Yeah, because Rhode Island got good ideas from Connecticut's Green Bank and stuff like that. They were talking about.
Yeah. They said that we could look at special assessment districts, which we kind of already have. We have a special zoning district, but we don't actually have a special assessment, but in our beach district. But anyway, what's really interesting is that at the end of this working group report out, this 80-page thing, is a list of every single potential grant that people can apply for. So I'm forwarding that to Laura and Bill and people just so that, and I'm sure they're aware of most of them, but there might be some interesting ones in there they didn't know about. So I will certainly try to get that to them so that they can use it as needed. But the other interesting thing is that right now there is no ways to administer this easily without sort of paying a large administrative cost. But there's a proposal on the table right now to put together a state investment pool that would be run by the treasurer. They already do some of the town monies that way right now. So I think the idea that
the state
administers right now some of. I think they might actually administer. It's a short-term. State administers some sort of short-term money. There's some acronym for it. I don't know what it's called.
Okay, yeah, that's fine.
But that is already something that it's a pool that we probably already participate in that, and it's run by the state treasurer. So it just helps from an administrative cost standpoint to have it run that way.
Okay. All right.
Anyway, so that's the update on that. Any questions?
No, sounds good.
No, I'd like to get a copy of that report if it's on the DEEP website. If you could point me to that.
Yeah, let me send you the link.
Point us to that.
I'd be
I'll
curious.
send the link out. Yeah. I mean, it's a long read, but it's kind of interesting. Look at the back at the funding sources. Okay, let's do election of officers for 2021.
Okay.
So we need to elect a chair, a vice chair, and a treasurer going forward.
All right.
Any nominations?
This is Dick, and I want to first congratulate Becky Bunnell on being appointed in her own right for a 5-year term on the Flood and Erosion Control Board, and that happened maybe a week, 10 days ago at the Board of Selectmen meeting, so congratulations. And with that, I would propose that we continue for 2021 with the same slate of officers as we have this year. Becky Bunnell as chair, Don Lamberti as vice chair, and I would continue as secretary. So I put that on the floor. If there's any comments, if someone wants to step up and serve, I would be happy to step down. But I think that Becky has done an outstanding job this year, and I want to encourage her to stay as chair and keep shepherding these significant projects that she's started.
Yes.
Would anyone else like to step up and serve?
No, you're doing an A++ job.
Absolutely.
I'm not hearing anyone else that would like to take a officer position. So do I hear a second to Dick's proposal?
I'll second. This is Paul. I'll second.
All in favor? Say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, we have our officers for 2021.
Okay.
Now,
I think that's wonderful. Becky didn't even oppose it.
We lucked out.
Phew. No, I sincerely believe that. I think you're doing a great job, and I think you'll, as you get more into this, you'll do even better next year.
Well, thank you, Dick. I will try to do my best for the town and for this group. The next thing we need to do is confirm our meeting dates, because we need to put those officially into the town calendar. And I'm proposing that we move forward with the same third Tuesday of the month that we've been doing, which would be January 19th. It's the list in the agenda are the recommended dates. And I didn't see any conflicts with any big holidays. But if everyone, I wasn't sure about whether there might be, my calendar doesn't show Jewish holidays, so I apologize if there is any kind of Jewish holiday conflict.
I'm okay with December 21st, but is that too close to Christmas, or is that not an issue?
Can I make some comments? I just want to walk through by month. My calendar does show the significant Jewish holidays, and there was nothing significant that I saw. However, January, Martin Luther King's birthday is on the 18th, and that sometimes is a long weekend. The 19th is the day after his holiday. I don't see a conflict there, but I just want to note that if anybody has a significant conflict.
No problem.
Okay. February, the 6th is February would be the 16th, and the 17th of February is Ash Wednesday. Again, I don't have any conflict with that, but I just wanted to mention that. Okay, and then March, our meeting is on the 16th. March 17th is St. Patrick's Day, and it's not the day after, so hangovers should not be a problem for anyone. But I just wanted to mention that. And then April, May, and June, I see nothing close to those dates, so that would seem just fine to me. July, August, September, and October, similarly, I don't see anything adjacent or significant in those weeks. And then November 16th is a full week and 2 days before Thanksgiving, so there's no conflict there. And then December, I picked up on the same thing Don is saying. Christmas is on Saturday the 25th, and if we have our meeting on Tuesday the 21st, assuming we all have gotten our vaccine and the world is back to normal, might that be a busy week because people will be trying to cram 2 Christmas years into one. Right. So I would suggest that for December we move the meeting up a week to December 14th instead of the 21st.
I'm fine with that. Other thoughts?
Sounds good to me.
All right. So, could we take a quick? Could anyone second the amended list of dates that would keep everything as in the agenda, with the exception of December, which would move to the 14th? Can we get a second to that motion?
Sure, I'll second it.
Okay.
All in favor? Say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Anyone opposed? All right, I will make these our official meeting dates. Thank you all. So that brings us to our last item on call: additional old or new business. Is there anyone who has any old or new business?
Yeah, I'll just give a brief comment on the wastewater treatment plant. It's still going slowly. The contamination, the sign off by DEEP and the EPA is dragging. The comment that I put in the minutes about the groundwater over at pump station number 1, that has been tested. There are no PCBs there, and it's a little oil sheen and hydrocarbons in and of themselves, like they're all over the place, and that's not a big deal. They are getting a filtration system, an on-site portable filtration system, and that's going to take all of the ground, because they're dewatering. So they build this caisson out of sheet piles, and then they dewater the dirt around that so that the hole doesn't fill with water. And the dewatering system will pump into the filtration system, and then that discharge will go into the wastewater treatment plant's input. So it will be further treated in our normal sewer system. So that's what's happening there. And again, it's going along, but it's slow. The Board of Selectmen had a meeting yesterday, and the topic of the meeting was appropriating an additional $1.7 million for remediation cleanup of all the sites around town that have gotten some fill from the pile. And among that $1.7 million is $200,000 additional for additional remediation and testing at the wastewater treatment plant site. So that project is just getting more and more expensive every time they turn around. But it looks like we're finally going to go and over the winter remediate those. I forget 6 sites throughout town that are contaminated.
Wow.
And then there's another 21 that we're doing testing at. I thought, right?
I thought that the list was pretty much complete. Like we had a complete game plan of what we were doing.
Okay. For some reason, I thought I had read that there was some additional testing was part of that 1.5 to 7 million.
It may
you might
very
be
well.
Right. I read it very quickly, so I
you may very well maybe. Now, just sticking for a moment, this is outside of
Penfield.
Well, the Penfield parking lot is one of the sites.
Okay.
And I don't know what that means. I don't know if they're going to dig up the parking lot, take all of that contaminated fill out from under the asphalt, put the asphalt back. It's like I don't know. It's a mess. It's a mess. Keeping with the theme of contamination and remediation, as I'm looking at the purchasing website, trying to find when they're going to post the project for Turney Creek. There's a project or a request for a proposal, request number 2021-44. And the title of this is 488 Tunxus Hill Road, Abatement and Demolition, due on December 1st. I had a little awareness of this. There is an old Connecticut DOT building right next to the car wash over there on Tunxus Hill Road. And the state either gave it to the town for $1 or we bought it for $100 or something. But we now own that property. We got it from the state. And if you want to just shake your head, go and look at that request for proposal, because it's 482 million pages of take the paint off of this wall, take the paint off of that wall, scrape up the asbestos-containing material from here, take all of the window caulking out because it's asbestos-containing material, and take all of the roof joists off because they have lead-containing paint. It just goes on and on and on. And it's like, man, the cost of doing business in these times is very interesting. And it's also,
why we got it for $1.
Yeah, we got it for $1, but to make it worthwhile. And I didn't read every page of that proposal, but it seemed to my initial glance that it's all about abatement. And they say to take the roof off, but they don't say like knock down the wall. So I don't know if they're going to use the shell and put a new roof on it and use it for another town garage or something. I have no idea that detail, but it makes for interesting reading.
They go the tax
dollars. So that Becky and I watched this webinar, Climate Adaptation Academy's Managed Retreat Workshop Agenda. And that's going to be, there's going to be a video, I think, available on that. And the main presenter was this A.R. Siders from the University of Delaware. She was really interesting to listen to.
She is quite good, yes.
Yeah, it was coherent, it was crisp, it was to the point. What was that? Okay. So I just wanted to quickly mention that. Thursday's Rooster River presentation. And that's all the comments I have.
Yeah, let me actually just comment quickly on the Managed Retreat webinar, because I did think it was actually quite good. And there were a couple themes in that I think we might want to talk about. One of them that Ms. Siders encouraged groups like ours and sort of multi multidisciplinary town groups to think about is, what do you want your city to look like in 100 years? And then put in place both the zoning and regulatory types of things that would make it so. So did you want to have, so for example, in Malibu, California, they have a zoning regulation that says that any new siting has to take into account future sea level rise at the 100-year sea level rise thing, so that you have to look at the economic life of the structure being 100 years, that you have to look at sea level rise 100 years from now. And your elevations and setbacks all have to be at that 100-year sea level rise period, which I thought was really interesting.
That assumes we know what it's going to be, right?
Well, I know. So I guess you'd have to make an educated guess. Maybe we'd do 50-year, because at least the state, even if Don may not agree with it, the state has a 50-year.
That's right. It's the law.
Projection.
It's the law. Yeah.
It may not be the facts, but it's the law.
I thought that was actually very.
Yeah,
very
I would. I mean,
construct.
I don't know when they're going to make it available, but I'm going to keep an eye out for that, because I want to watch it again, and I'll send around the link, and I would encourage everybody just to listen to it, because she was great.
Yeah.
I've been to a lot of these things now, and she was good. I'm sorry, Becky.
A couple other things that I think she said that were sort of interesting is that over the next several years you're going to start to see banks and insurance companies start to react very differently around coastal properties. And her hypothesis was banks may not offer 30-year mortgages. They may offer only 15-year mortgages, or they may put a penalty on a mortgage in a coastal area. Insurance rates might be different based upon what your zone is, if you will. She also mentioned we're definitely already seeing real estate values change in many areas of the country, and that's just going to escalate, and that there might be some way to have real estate disclosure laws. Right now you don't have to disclose any prior flooding, apparently, but that may change as well. So she's just sort of saying that we should be looking at sort of a forward look and expect some changes by the real estate and banking industries. Those kinds of considerations seem like they might fit into our town's strategic plan, not necessarily the plan of conservation and development, because I think the time horizon for the POCD is only 10 years, and the strategic plan has a longer time horizon. Yeah, and unfortunately, none of those were in. Can you imagine?
Yeah, well. Even we might talk about it,
but that plan
we might talk about it being a real long time horizon, but we're acting like things are always going to be the same.
So that brings up a question for the group. I know we had at one point reached out to the Strategic Plan Committee and had a meeting with them and shared our perspectives, and that was well over a year ago now. I have not seen anything on the strategic plan other than probably about 9 months ago there was an outline that was sort of sent around. Do we want to feed some of these comments and concerns into the Strategic Plan Committee before they actually finalize a draft and issue it? Hello?
Yeah.
As for me, I'm not responding because I hit my headset and it pulled out of the phone, so I didn't hear what your question was.
Oh.
So I have an excuse for not responding to your question.
I'm just saying, do we want to actually feed some of these comments into the Strategic Plan Committee in a formal letter? I know what I'd said before your headset got pulled out is that while we did meet with them probably, a year and a half ago now and share a lot of our thoughts, not much of that got into the actual strategic plan outline that I saw that was issued around 9 months ago, and it was just an outline. There wasn't really much about sea level rise or any impact of beach district and coastal districts getting flooded and historic districts getting flooded, and none of that seemed to be of concern to the strategic plan committee.
I think we should. I think this whole concept of look out 100 years and what do you see the town looking like? That's really wise.
All right, so I would be happy to do an initial draft and have it be available for comment in our next Flood and Erosion Control Board meeting, unless someone else wants to do a draft.
Yeah.
No, I think, Madam Chair, I think you're well equipped to do that.
Yes.
All right, I will draft a letter just suggesting that they might want to beef up that section of the plan. Okay, any other old or new business?
No.
All right, not hearing anything, then I would propose that we adjourn the meeting at 7:58 p.m. And I thank you all for joining the meeting, and I will talk to you all in December.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Becky.
Have a great Thanksgiving,
Thank you,
everybody.
Thank you, Don. Thank you, Prue.
Bye. Stay safe.
Thank you, Paul.